Okay, I want to go over the annotated bibliography with you. This will not take long at all, and I'm sure that you've already seen this stuff, and I meant to get this video out sooner, but it didn't necessarily need to get out right away. This paper will not take you very long to write at all, so we're doing okay. I'm just going to go over a couple things, and it's very simple. I have this sort of summarizing sources sheet up here, and I'm going to go over a sample essay with you as well. And I even have a rubric that I'll look at with you that I'm going to put up on Moodle after I upload this video, so you can kind of know what I'm looking for here. The annotated bibliography is extremely simple. It's basically a list of your sources that you're finding on your topic, and you're annotating them, providing a summary, an evaluation, and an analysis. You want this to be roughly, each annotation to be roughly 6 to 12 sentences. So if you notice, each of these annotations here are about a little over half a page. I'll talk about the color coding in a minute, but they're roughly about the same length, each one. 6 to 12 sentences. This means that you should have 2 to 4 sentences for evaluation, 2 to 4 sentences for summary, and 2 to 4 sentences for analysis. So what makes up those parts? I've color-coded this here so you can kind of follow along. Green is evaluation, yellow is summary, and blue is analysis. Now, each of those parts broken down very simply is evaluation is, what is this source? What type of source is it? Who is the author? What is their credibility and credentials? And if you notice further down the page here, I have more detailed sections on what I'm looking for. So you can kind of just check this stuff off as you go, provide as much information as you can. So 2 to 4 sentences that says, what type of source is this? Popular, scholarly, primary, secondary. And you should be explaining why they're that type of source. Don't just say it's popular and move on. Say it's popular because it's from a general news magazine. It's written for a general audience. It's there to make a profit, right? It's scholarly because it's written in an academic journal. Say things like that as you write this. Summary, exactly what we know summary to be. You're just taking the gist of the author's argument, discussing any key claims or specific quotes that you can pull out that might work for your future paper, and any thesis statements or key claims that the author's making throughout there. And I have a little bit more specific aspect here. Don't worry so much about this word limit thing. That's for different types of summary. But essentially, 150 to 300 words for the whole annotation here. And then analysis. Analysis really just means how do you plan to use this source in the future? Why did you incorporate it here? What is its purpose? What is its function? How could you use this in your research paper? What side of the argument does it fall on? What does it provide you with? What kind of knowledge does it give you, or clarity does it give you on your topic? So that's plain and simple, all I'm really looking for here in each one. And I'll go over this sample annotated bibliography with you. Before I get into the actual annotations, just so you're aware, we're writing this in MLA format, like a standard essay. Please do not look at other examples of annotated bibliographies. I'd like you to try to keep it with my example here, because people write these differently, so I have my own way that I want you to write this for our own purposes. Other professors will have you write them differently for their own purposes and for the purposes of the larger assignment. For me, we need to practice writing and engaging in writing, and a good way to remember information is to write about it. So this is helping you engage with your sources. So I'd like you to write your annotated bibliographies in this format. So MLA format, you have the header, you have the page number at the top. Your title can just be works cited page, or it can be your research question or the topic that you're trying to engage with here. Notice also that each source has an MLA citation for the source first, and then the annotation. So source, citation, annotation. Source, citation, annotation. All right. Everyone does the exact same thing. And that's something that I'll look at and take note of when I grade your papers. The other thing formulaically here that you should notice is that your sources are listed in alphabetical format by the first letter of the source. So B for beautiful, that starts us off. The next source starts with D. The next source starts with K, L, O, and S. So alphabetical order is the way that you should list your sources. Please remember that you need 5 sources. You can absolutely include more than 5. I'm going to grade the best 5. So if you have 7, let's say, and 2 of them just aren't that great, or you were trying but you didn't really know what all to say, but 5 of them are fairly well, I'm going to drop the lowest 2, and I'll grade the 5. If you have 6, I'll drop the lowest 1 and grade the 5. So just keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to get into this. You do not, and I don't want you to color code your annotations in this way. I'm just doing it for some clarity here. This paper is kind of a CB paper. It's not the best, but it gives us some stuff to work with that I want to point out to you. So the citations are correct. They're in MLA 7 format. It's from last year's class, but the formatting is correct here for its style. Now, if you notice, something that's really lacking here is the evaluation. They tell me what type of source it is. They say it's a scholarly article. Okay. They tell me Martin Dick is an expert in this topic. Okay. But they don't tell me why it's a scholarly source. They don't tell me what makes Martin Dick an expert. They don't even tell me what the topic is that he's an expert in. And this is really problematic. So this is a good example of what not to do, right? Don't just answer the question very directly. Provide some explanation, right? Provide support for what you're saying. Don't just say it's a scholarly article written by an expert. Why is it scholarly? Is it in a scholarly journal? Why is he an expert? Does he have a PhD? Does he have some kind of higher level credentials? Does he have expert level experience in the field? These are things I need to know. But what's good here, what's even, is the summary and the evaluation, right? The summary just gives me a gist of what the article is about. I have some understanding of what this article is discussing. American corporations focusing on profit through globalization. Globalization allows large companies to gain profit while lowering costs. They do this by moving businesses overseas for cheaper labor and to cut input costs, etc. And getting a general understanding of what is happening in the source. And then they even provide a few specifics. This student's writing about Pfizer, so they reference the fact that the author directly references Pfizer, and specifically Pfizer's Global Health Fellows Program. So that's really important because it connects to the student's topic, right? And then they go on from there to say how they can use it, right? They're analyzing what they can use with the source. The general discussion, as well as reference to Pfizer, can add background support that I'm going to provide in the assignment, as well as my potential argument. By providing examples of various big American corporations, I can compare Pfizer to others, as well as categorize them as a globalizing company in the marketing world. So I'm getting a sense of where their research is taking them, what direction they're moving in, and I'm beginning to see how their research paper is taking shape. Now, it doesn't mean that this is exactly how you're going to use the source. You may even cut this source out entirely by the time you go to write the paper, and that's fine. You don't need a specific thing that you're going to... It's not like you need to say, I'm going to use this source in paragraph 3 of my argument by using this quote to support that. I don't need that, right? I just need a general idea. What could you use this source for? Why would you include it? And that's really it, right? Let's go to the other one here real quick. This is a popular source, primary source as well. It's shorter because it's not a long source. If you go to look this up, it's really just a short little web page, probably like 750 words in total. So they don't need as many sentences to describe the source. But again, lacking in evaluation. This isn't even. The citation's correct. They give me a couple sentences of summary, a couple sentences of analysis, but they're really lacking in evaluation here. And that's problematic because I want to know how well you can evaluate a source. I want to make sure that you understand the differences between types of sources, that you understand the importance of credibility when looking at a source. So they're telling me it's a primary source from Pfizer's website. Okay, so they've explained why it's a primary source, but they don't really tell me much about why it's credible or its connection to the topic, right? This summary here is actually pretty bad. It's not content-wise very good. The length is okay, but they could tell me a little bit more about the web page. This doesn't do a good job of doing that. So again, just because you're meeting certain requirements doesn't mean that it's good enough to get a higher grade. Something to keep in mind. Now they do a fairly good job analyzing the source here. Their involvement with lobbying is a possible component to my argument, so they're having some suggestions of how this could be useful to them. This has a significant impact on my viewpoint of the topic, so that means that this source really guided their understanding of what's going on in their research, guiding their view of the Pfizer as a company and what kind of business practices they engage in. So this source was kind of fundamental for shaping this writer's views of Pfizer as a company. So really all I should get here is some basic writing techniques, right? Evaluation, summary, analysis that you use in other forms of writing. But I just want to get a sense of what you're finding, what research you're looking at for your topic, what your topic is, and also how it's beginning to take shape as you move through the unit. Again, you shouldn't have a side here yet. You shouldn't have an argument to be made, but you should have some idea of where you're going, right? You should begin to really notice where you're headed, what direction you're headed. You might begin shaping and reshaping your research question as well as you find more and more about the topic. You may even change your mind on certain aspects of the topic too, and that's good. That can be good, as long as you're doing that with credible sources. Lastly, and real quick, I just want to go over this rubric. You can kind of look at this as your own, on your own time, and check this off as you need to. I've created this to kind of work as a checklist that you can kind of use, and so I have it set up to where if you meet all these standards, you get a C. If you meet all these standards and a few of these standards down here, you get a B. If you can meet, all of these standards and a few of these standards, you get an A. So, bare minimum here, you need to have a MLA formatted paper. Your annotation should be roughly 6 to 12 sentences. Sources are credible. You do all three parts: evaluate, summarize, analyze. The source is described accurately, so you're not lying or making stuff up. And then there's just no major errors in formatting here. I know this is a somewhat less formal paper than a formal essay, but that doesn't mean that your writing should be informal. You should still adopt the proper tone here, write like a college student. And then for B&A papers, you're really just adding stuff onto that. You're really thinking this stuff out. You're not just giving me direct, really quick lines. You're not rushing through the annotations. You are really showing me that you understand how to evaluate sources. You've actually read the sources. Some of these sources I'll go in and check, and if I go in and I find out that you're just misrepresenting them or you clearly haven't read the material, that's a problem. I don't do that with every source, but I do that with some of them. So, and then an A paper really just has to wow me. Every citation is correct. Every annotation is 6 to 12 sentences. It really has complex and original thought. You don't fall into the habit of just every annotation looks the exact same, right? Each one should sort of be organic to the source that you're writing about. So just look that over on your own time. Kind of use it as a checklist, if you will. That's kind of why I have the boxes here. You can kind of check this off as you think that you've done that, and then this makes it a little easier for me to grade because I'm going to grade this fairly quickly. I'm not looking for the minutia as much in this one. I'm really just looking to make sure that you know the difference between a good source and a bad source, a trustworthy source and an untrustworthy source, a biased source and an objective source, a popular scholarly source, a primary, secondary source. I want to make sure that you have learned some valuable things here about doing research and the sources that you're engaging with. So let me know if you have any questions. This stuff, like I said, it's really simple. It won't take you much time at all to really sit down and write this paper. But please reach out to me on Remind if you do need any help. That's what I'm here for. So.